Philadelphia 76ers and the Portland Trailblazers both get wins? Are we living in a twilight zone? We're talking about those games. We're also going to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and their win tonight. And do they have a legitimate chance to make out the Western Conference? We're going to get into all that and more on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On NBA Game Night, where it's every game, every night. I'm Haize, host of Locked On Bulls. I'm joined by Swipa, one of the hosts of Locked On Nuggets. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're going to go ahead and get started, Swiper, tonight. And Philly, they get a rare win tonight and actually look like a pretty competent team in getting that win. Paul George scores 30 points. Tyrese Maxey scores 29 points. And they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers on top of all of that. The Cavs have been losing more games recently. Now, not to say that really changes the outlook of how dangerous of a team they are in this NBA season, but you start asking questions like, do they spend a lot of energy up front? Is it going to be a little bit rougher go for them in the second half of the season? But let's start off with Philly. How'd you feel about Philly's performance tonight in this win?
Well, honestly, it was interesting. The Philly has not played well as of late. I would say Tyrese Maxey has a couple of really good performances here. He had a 28-point, 11-assist night the other night, I believe, in Denver, and so he's played well. So they got good performances. They get 29 from Tyrese Maxey. He was scoring almost at will at different points in time in this game. I just think he had a lot that he brought to the table. Obviously, he's one of the best young guards in the league. I was shocked to get 22 points from Kelly Oubre. Kelly has been one of the most inconsistent shot takers and shot makers in the NBA this year. And again, for you to get 8 of 16 from him, and I think he was able to finish well, they were taking advantage of the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're just a functionally different team if they don't have Evan Mobley on the roster. And there are just a lot of things that he just they don't have when he's not playing. And Dean Wade, getting the chance to start in his place, like defensively, they're just a much different team. So they took advantage. Kelly Oubre was attacking. You had Tyrese Maxey, who was attacking consistently tonight. They absolutely did what they were supposed to do. Eric Gordon also had a good game. So I think the 76ers, this is just an opportunity for them to bounce back. After they lost to Denver, Haize, I want to say they gave up 19 first quarter fast break points. And I think they gave up 30 plus fast break points in that game. And the reports were that there was arguments and yelling and screaming coming from the away locker room. Yeah. The media room could hear them arguing. And I think a lot of that was they're just like, we can't continue to play like this. We cannot continue to lose like this. We have to show face. And tonight they did that. They played with energy. They played with effort. And they closed the game out because the Cleveland Cavaliers had a chance to win this game and to at least tie it up. But then they were able to hold out, make their free throws down the stretch of the game. And without, obviously, Embiid being in the roster tonight, without KJ Martin, no Jared McCain, no Caleb Martin, no Kyle Lowry. I mean, they're decimated. And yet they still got the job done. So I'm really happy that they were able to do this and happy they were able to play this well. And then hopefully we'll see. 76ers might be able to keep winning games.
For sure. We'll get to Philly some more here in a second. I want to talk about Cleveland. So Cleveland has lost 3 out of their last 5 games. Those losses come against OKC. No shame there. Houston Rockets. No real shame there either. That's a deep team. And then tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Their next 3 games Saturday. They play tomorrow. Houston, Detroit, Miami. Are you starting to be worried that maybe Cleveland's taking his foot a little bit off the gas? Is it just the fact that they're missing Evan Mobley? Is it anything to be concerned about at all, really, when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
No, regular season setting, no. I truly think that they just, again, Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, and Evan Mobley are out. Like, that is so much of their defense, and especially their perimeter defense. And I think when you don't have that, it just functionally changes how teams can attack you and how you attack other teams. So even versus the Houston Rockets, let's be real. Like Darius Garland gets to the line. If he just makes his free throws, they win that game versus the Houston Rockets. Now, again, obviously that's all on Darius, but Donovan Mitchell got ripped by Amin Thompson towards the end of that game. I just didn't like his decision-making down the stretch, but they have typically performed well in the clutch this year. Donovan Mitchell has typically performed well in the clutch this year. Darius Garland as well. So I wouldn't chalk that up to anything more than I think they're just kind of going through a little bit of grind of the January part of the regular season when you don't have players in the lineup. But this is why you want to come out as hot as they did. I think they started the year off 15-0. I think it's exactly 15-0.
Yeah.
Well, this is why you want to do that. This is why when you have a chance, when you're healthy, you want to win as many games as possible to give you some cushion. That when you do start to have injuries that shape up the rest of your roster, that you're able to take blows like this. But guess what? As bad as tonight felt, losing to the lowly 76ers, Cleveland is 36-8, and they have a 5.5 game lead over the second place in the Eastern Conference. They have bought themselves room to be able to sit players and to be able to deal with some of these injuries and nagging things they might be experiencing. That way they can get to the playoffs with the number one seed fully healthy.
Yeah, and I love the way that you worded that because they added themselves a buffer. And this is the time period as well where teams are going to, maybe be more inclined to sit guys between now and the All-Star break, the couple of weeks we have there, and let players rest up to get ready for that grind after the All-Star break when you really want to, start getting in that rhythm and getting in that playoff mode. So I think that all makes sense for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's get back to Philly for a second. Philly wins this game, right? They're still 2-8 in their last 10. They play Chicago tomorrow. Chicago Bulls right now only have a 2-game lead over the Philadelphia 76ers for that final play-in spot. Swiper, I'm going to throw it to you on this one. Despite all the stuff that Philly has been through this season, do they still have a legitimate chance to at least to sneak into the play-in, especially considering that the Bulls aren't a great team? They could be making some trades to move off some players for some assets here leading into the deadline. What chances do you give Philly to make a little bit of a run here and at least sneak into the play-in?
Well, they can. They can. My question is, why would they? What does that do for the 76ers for them to make the play-in? Because then it's a single game elimination versus the Heat. Mm-hmm. Cool. And then it's a single game elimination maybe versus the Hawks or the Magic. Cool. So then you make it in as the 8th seed. So you're playing Cleveland with a very hampered Embiid, a Paul George that's not fully healthy, and then you're playing Boston with a hampered Embiid, Paul George not fully healthy, and on top of that, their first round pick is a guaranteed top 6 protected. Now, again,
yes,
they are still, even if they have a bad record and miss the playoffs, they are still not statistically likely to hold on to that pick because of the way that the NBA has shaped out the odds of you getting your pick in the top 3, 2, 5, 6 based on how the lottery goes. But even still, I think that Philly should be trying to commit his resources to keep their pick because this is a loaded draft class and they can add yet another true star kind of rookie like Jared McCain. Look, Haize, I just think functionally, yes, it would be nice for them to have a nice story that despite all the stuff they went through, they went to the playoffs. I think that would be a fun story. But at the end of the day, would you rather Jared McCain comes back fully healthy second year? Tyrese Maxey is a 6-year player by that point. Crazy to think about that.
That's
and
crazy.
Then you get some stud rookie, hopefully in the top 6 of the draft, and then you can add that to Embiid and George and everything else. For me, that makes much more sense for them to try to do as opposed to trying to force themselves really into the NBA playoffs and the play-in. And I'm not going to lie to you, Bam Adebayo, Khalil Ware, and say Jimmy Butler still there, Tyler Hero's playing, I don't know if they would beat the Heat, let alone I don't know if they would beat the Hawks. Could Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, I mean, I just think they should be primarily focused on their health is what I would do if I was them.
And I think, too, for Philly, even if they if they keep their pick, even if they want to move that pick to try to get a star now for a team that maybe wants to move off someone so they can add something so they can go on another run, that's another option for them. I just think their options are better for them, of course, like you said, if they don't make the playoffs and they get to keep that pick, it's completely open for them at that point, whether they want to try to add somebody that they can develop, like you said, add to McCain, add to Tyrese Maxey, or move it to try to get somebody. So, it'll be interesting to see who tries to out quote unquote tank each other here, like because whoever's in that 10th seed, because the Bulls also their pick is top 10 protected to the Spurs, so they can have some reason to try to not necessarily pull it all together between now and the end of the season. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, I imagine we might talk about them later, but I'd be curious to see what you think they should do with that.
Yeah, well, we can talk. We can talk about them later as we end the show, man, because we're not going to spend a lot of time on Portland. We're just going to make that clear. Not spending a lot of time there on Portland. But next up, we're going to get to the Grizzlies and their win today over the Pelicans. But first, we got to get to a message from FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More game night coming up next. All right. So the Memphis Grizzlies get a victory tonight. And this is a game that was fun to watch, especially in the second half of this game with just the way that it went down. I think when you look at how the Grizzlies really pulled themselves away in the second half of this game, I have no idea how we switched sides, but nonetheless, it is what it is. But when you look at the way that they pulled away in the second half of this game, I think it just added to the excitement. Jaren Jackson Jr. scored 15 of his 29 points in the third quarter of this game. Desmond Bane had 20 points. So they end up pulling out this victory, 139-126. How do you feel about this game, Swipe?
It was interesting. The Pelicans had an opportunity to win this game, but they just don't have the horses to do it. You know, watching the Pelicans play is very much a team that's trying to get within process. They don't always make the best decisions with the basketball on the offensive end, and it's not just because they're young. Like Mesey is young. Trey Murphy still figuring some things out. You know, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, I think, gave some good minutes at times today, but second half just wasn't able to get it done. Like Javonte Green, I think, played well today. Jordan Hawkins got mad hot over the course of the third. I think the second quarter today, actually, Jordan Hawkins actually went nuts. I think he had 15 points in the second quarter. That's right. And he was 6 of 10 from the field and 3 of 4 from three. So, but the issue is, like, when it comes to, like, they had an 8-point lead, but then their decision making to maintain a lead just evaporated. They were forcing shots, forcing ISOs, DeJounte Murray forcing ISOs, forcing contested middies. And I'm just sitting here like, well, you're already undermanned and you're playing versus a superior team. I think you're just going to have to play a lot smarter than what they did. But anyway, with that, like, that's just kind of what happened when you're undermanned. You got to play to perfection. And obviously, even for Memphis, they didn't have Ja Morant, you know, Marcus Smart and all that stuff, and Salty Aldama wasn't there. So they were also undermanned today. But Luke Kennard just was blasting 7 of 9 from 3 in this game. And every single time that they gave him any room, they played drop coverage on the pick and roll, Luke Kennard was cooking. They didn't rotate correctly, Luke Kennard was cooking. They're running in transition. They didn't space out to Luke Kennard correctly. Luke Kennard was cooking. So they just didn't have the defensive coverage that they needed. And then once Jaren Jackson Jr. got rolling in the second half, it was lights out. 29 points for himself. And then Zach Edey had a double-double, 13 and 11, really used his size well. He was a plus 24 today that actually led the entire team for the Memphis Grizzlies. And then I really like Jalen Wells. Again, the numbers aren't going to scream out for Jalen Wells, but he made a really, really, really important three there in the second half. But also his defense is important. Like his ability to be able to space out and go and cover, you know, DeJounte Murray, to be able to cover out with Jordan Hawkins, Javonte Green. Like, he is going to be a special defender in this league. He played well, and they're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different places. You know, Desmond Bane, I thought he was good today. 20 points, 9 of 18 from the field for Desmond, but he had 14 assists. Found the ability to get everybody involved. The playmaking was there from him. Like, I just think that this Memphis team is very talented, and it's very difficult to deal with them when you're not at the top level, you know, in terms of where your roster and stuff is. But Memphis is a good team, man. They've been a very good offense. They've been a very good defense this year. I think they have two all-star players, worthy players, in Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't think both of them will make it, but Memphis has everything that you need to be one of those really, really serious teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at the Memphis Grizzlies as well, they're 19-8 without Ja Morant this season. And I personally look at that as a positive. And keep in mind, Gigi Jackson, who played, in this game as well, has not been there the entirety of the season. He really hasn't played that many games yet on the year. This is a really, really deep Memphis Grizzlies team. And I love the fact that they haven't tried to rush to make any moves. Even when they had injuries, they didn't make any knee-jerk moves or anything like that, because I think this is a team that could benefit from just seeing whatever the natural conclusion of the season is, whatever it ends in the playoffs for them, and then figuring out what they need to do to add at that point. They don't need to rush to do anything. They have time. They got youth on their side. And we know that these pieces have always been better when they're together. But as you get Gigi Jackson, 4 of 12 tonight for 10 points, he still had 7 rebounds. He always contributes. Zach Edey as well. He's a flawed player, but Zach Edey always finds a way to find some type of way to be productive. I want to see him stop taking 3-point shots, though. I don't know what's up with that, but that is what it is when it comes down to it. But this is a team that I really feel because they're top 10 in defense, top 10 in offense. I think a lot of other teams have been talked about around them, but the Grizzlies have been fairly consistent. I don't think they've dropped lower than 4th in the Western Conference for the entirety of the year. You had the Denver Nuggets kind of drop and come back up. The Los Angeles Lakers are in and out of whatever they're going to do there. Of course, the Houston Rockets and the Thunder have always been in the top 2, but the Grizzlies are a really, really consistent team. And considering how Ja and other players have been in and out of that lineup, I think that this is a team that needs to be talked about a little bit more as being a real contender to come out the Western Conference this year.
Yeah, that's tough. Anytime you're a young team and you haven't done it before, the narrative is always going to be there that you have to show that you can do it first. And I think Memphis is going to have to survive through that. But also top-end talent, I think people are really going to question Ja Morant. I think he's had a good playoff series, by the way, in his career. So it's not to say he hasn't. But Ja Morant, this year, he's been good. But this year he's averaging 21, 4, 7.7, 44% from the field, 31% from 3, 81% from the line, only a 55.9 true shooting this year. Is he going to be good enough at the top end as a scorer to be able to do what they need him to do? Is Desmond Bane going to be good enough as a secondary scorer? That's going to be the question for them. Can they generate enough offense in a half-court setting versus the best teams in the Western Conference when it matters? So maybe, yeah, for sure. I mean, 100%. I think they should get credit for what they're doing in the regular season, given that they kind of have revamped their team a little bit, that they're not even fully healthy, and yet they've still been winning games. And they've been one of the most impressive teams in the league. You check out dunks and threes this year. Memphis has the 4th highest net rating in the NBA this season. They're 5th in offense, and then they're 7th in adjusted offense, and they're 7th in adjusted defensive rating this year. So, yeah, I think they're in a elite team in the regular season. I think they're going to do a lot of damage this year. I think they could win 55, maybe 56 games, 54 games this year. I think Memphis, the Nuggets, and Houston are probably going to be pushing each other. Maybe for the rest of the year, just because both of those teams, all 3 of those teams, want to establish home court advantage. Right now, the Rockets and the Grizzlies, they're both 6.5 games back, and then the Nuggets, they're just a game and a half back, and the Nuggets play the Minnesota Timberwolves tomorrow. So this is probably going to be a fight all the way through All-Star break, and then for the rest of the year, see who can take that number 2 spot.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely going to be something that I think in the playoffs, and we got a long time before we get there and talk about that, is that how the brackets shape up and the matchups is going to be really important for all these teams in the Western Conference. Whoever, it's going to be a crapshoot out in the Western Conference, especially with right now the Dallas Mavericks being the 7th seed, even the Minnesota Timberwolves. I know they haven't had the best season either, but them being at the 8th seed, those 2 teams make it out the play-in. They can make it interesting enough in that Western Conference. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this Western Conference shake out. And don't overlook the Phoenix Suns too if they do make a move. So watching that Western Conference the rest of the year is going to be really, really fun. Right now, I know your Denver Nuggets 4th right now. Jokic is having an incredible offense. The season that Jokic is having, I think if the Denver Nuggets were 1 or 2 in the West, more people will be talking about, because he's having a very special season. But right now, who's your pick to come out the Western Conference, albeit very early?
Yeah, I mean, I'll still say I'll give OKC the credit. It just, everything depends on matchups. if OKC, if they had to run into Dallas and Denver, those are the two biggest matchup disadvantages they would have, I think, in the playoffs. So I think that OKC should be getting the love because I think their defense is going to be the thing that's going to be the most dangerous thing to deal with right now. And then secondary might be the Nuggets offense. So I do think OKC, because of where they are currently, they get Chet back, they get Isaiah Hartenstein back. I think they should be the betting favorite to make it out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I agree with that. We'll see how that goes as the season goes on. But we're gonna go on in the show as well. We got to talk about the battle of the struggle bus is what I label this. As the Portland Trailblazers took on the Charlotte Hornets. We'll get into that, but first we got to get into a message from Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA. Enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80. More game night coming up next. All right, last game of the night, the Portland Trailblazers get a victory over the Charlotte Hornets, 102-97. Anthony Simons in this game scores 17 of his 27 points in the second half. Jeremy Grant added 22 points as well, and they get a win over the Hornets. Kind of is what it is here. This was one of those games that watching this is just both of these teams have gone. I'll say this: the Portland Trailblazers have won more games than I expected them to. And the Charlotte Hornets have won way less games. I thought with the healthy LaMelo Ball, this could be a team that was going to contend for a play-in spot. That doesn't seem like it's going to happen unless there's something magical to change. Even despite LaMelo Ball being one of the top players as far as scoring points per game, rebounds, assists, he's getting good stats, but the Hornets just aren't winning. How'd you feel about the game, Swipe?
Yeah, the Blazers are an interesting case because it doesn't feel like they should be winning as many games as they are, but they just are tough, and they have a lot of different people that can score. And so because they have a lot of people that can score, I think they just can have these games where they just shoot the lights out. They're able to just take advantage of different matchups on a night in, night out basis. And also Scoot Henderson has been having more good games as of late. And so I think they have just created a little bit of opportunity for themselves to really stretch their legs. And also Anthony Simons, again, not everybody's favorite guard in the league, but this month in January, he's averaging 21 points a game, 4.6 assists. He's averaging, 3 rebounds, 45, 88 splits this month. Like, you can live with that. Like, he's a horrible defender, obviously, and everybody's very aware of. But tonight, he played well. Like, again, another game, 27 points, 5 rebounds. And then you get 2 assists from him, 8 of 16 from the field, 4 of 10 from 3. And then Jeremy Grant, who right now is a part of a lot of trade speculations to certain places, 22 points for Jeremy Grant, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, and 4 of 8 from 3. He's one of the best shooting wings the last couple of years. They just have a lot of dudes. Shaedon Sharpe coming off the bench. They got Jabari Walker. They got Scoot Henderson. They got Denny Avdia. Like, he had 18 points today. Like, and he's one of the best wing defenders in the league. I would love to see if somebody can actually grab him and put him on a contender. He would be amazing on one of these elite teams. Toumani Camara, 11 points for him. They also won the minutes for him in the game. I really like Donovan Clingan. Like, the numbers are not going to love him in some traditional sense, but he is going to be an incredible defender in this league. He gave him 4 points and 13 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 blocks tonight. They just have a lot of good young players. And I mean, Charlotte is just honestly, outside of LaMelo, they just don't have I think really premium talent that's available. I mean, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, I do like Mark Williams, but I think they're just a little bit of a talent deficit, but they're hurt. They didn't have their best player today as well. So I think it's kind of a little bit expected that they're going to lose this game today.
Yeah, I mean, they lose Brandon Miller for a while now as well. Like I think, is it for the season, I believe. It's unfortunate there. Don't forget, I do like a lot of the young players on the roster. I agree with you. Like Mark Williams is somebody I really like. He just can't stay healthy either. Like I love what Mark Williams brings in theory, but he has to be able to stay on the court to bring it.
Yeah.
LaMelo and Brandon Miller, on paper, can make this really good scoring tandem, but we got to see them be able to have the time to develop together, and we just haven't really gotten to see that a whole lot. So the Hornets got some things that they need to figure out, and I would not be surprised at all if LaMelo Ball, depending on how much pull he has in that organization, has a talk with the front office and says, listen, I'm playing some of the best basketball I can right now. You guys got to get a better team around me and not waste this time. And we'll see if the Hornets can get something done. Overall, the Trailblazers, we all know they're focused on being in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. We'll see what kind of luck they get in the lottery. They're hoping for that. They got a lot of pieces on this roster that could end up being moved at the deadline as well, that teams are poking around at. We'll see if that happens, which kind of gets us to the thing that we want to end the show on. So there's a lot of trade talk. This is around the time. We're about 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. There's going to be a lot of kind of rumors and everything to pop up. The Jimmy Butler, of course, is one of the hottest ones around. How Bradley Beal works into that is going to be 3-team trade, is going to be 4-team trade. I've seen more permutations and rumors around what that trade could be. Mark Stein said that it was speculated that this could end up being not only one of the biggest trades as far as numbers of teams involved, but also the money that's moved and players and assets
with
that
Jimmy
are moved.
Butler.
Yeah, if the Jimmy Butler trade, if it ends up going down, how you feel about that?
Man, I mean, because of the CBA rules, everybody, if you haven't had an opportunity, that is something I would absolutely, you can go and research it. The NBA has information on both the first apron, the luxury tax, the first apron, the second apron, how it affects everything for the NBA as a whole. And it could end up being a huge deal, in part because making room for Jimmy Butler's salary and getting the actual amount of money to go to the proper place is going to be the issue. Because the thing with Miami is they're looking for young assets. They want draft picks. They want to make sure that if they get off of Jimmy Butler, that they're replacing him with a young or two young players, and they want to see if they can get some draft capital. That way they can continue to build around this ascending Tyler Hero. Hopefully Bam Adebayo getting back to his normal self at some point this season. They got Khalil Ware on the roster. They have future pieces, but it's not happening unless Pat Riley feels like he's getting a deal that is commemorate of the value of Jimmy Butler to the organization, even if they're not willing to hand out another max contract to him. So I think this could be a huge deal. This should be a 3, 4, 5-team deal, just because you're going to have to be able to convince the Suns or the Warriors or whoever else. If you're already over the aprons, you're going to have to find a way to be able to slot him into your unit while using other people's salary cap space and their draft capital by unloading more players off your roster. And on top of that, some teams also, Haize, are trying to get underneath the first apron or the second apron and getting back into the luxury tax arena. Well, one of the ways you can do that is shedding salary. And the ways you can shed salary is by saying, okay, we're going to shed this salary, but what we're going to do is we're going to put our bid in on these trades, and we're going to give up either some young pieces, we're going to give up some draft capital, and we want to actually push this player and this deal into this trade. That way we can get underneath the second or first apron, and then by the time the offseason comes around, we can make real moves to improve our roster. Or during this trade cycle, prior to the February 6th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time deadline, then they'll be able to make an additional move to add to their roster. So there are several levels of things at work here, Haize. Teams are looking to bolster their roster. Teams are looking to fix their cap situation. And in fixing their cap situation, Haize, teams are looking to have more flexibility to make adjustments to the roster. That's probably been the biggest prohibitor that I've noticed about the CBA and heard around the NBA, is that teams want to do more, but because of the restrictions financially and the way the owners have phrased a lot of these deals, it's impossible for a lot of people to make real movements, even on the margins, to their roster. And even think about it like this: Bruce Brown, for everybody, the report is that Masai Ujiri might just go ahead and waive him. Haize, do you realize that if you do that, any team that's above the first apron, they cannot take any player onto their roster that has signed a deal above the mid-level exception, like so $12 million basically. If a player had made more than that, you cannot add them to the roster unless you duck underneath the apron or that bracket. So then you have to shed salary just to even get a wave player on your roster. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that you can't, a player is already paid, they already got their money, and you can't add them.
Still can't have them.
Like, that's stupid. Like, who's that helping? Again, the NBA and the ownership are arguing the reason that we're doing this because we want to increase the parity around the league, and we don't want the best teams getting the best players, even in these situations, even if they've been waived, because they're obviously their value is higher than what their value is when they're on the market, when they're waived and all that stuff. So it's a huge mess, and that's why it's probably going to get so messy come February.
Yeah, it's gonna be a mess. Because like all these teams are maneuvering, and like you said, there's so many different moving parts of this, and so many different motivations by the different teams as well. And then, like, even if you want to get a team involved to kind of absorb some of the bad money in that, then you have to incentivize them with throwing in picks to it, which it's gonna be, if Jimmy Butler is moved at this trade deadline, I do believe it's going to take at least 4 teams. I don't think it's just going to be a 3-team trade. It's going to take a bunch of teams. And even like my team, the Bulls, have been mentioned in that, and kind of absorbing Bradley Beal's contract for a first round. I don't see how that makes any sense for this team.
No.
But it's just so much going on to try to make this happen that, and it would be all around Jimmy Butler, who is already ready to make this situation the most dramatic that he can, just because that's what Jimmy does on his way out of places if he's not happy. We'll see, man. I don't. If you had to give a percentage on it, what percentage do you give that Jimmy Butler's moved at this deadline?
I mean, it should be 100%. He just got splined again for not showing up to the team playing. Like, this is a distraction for the locker room. They're still trying to make the playoffs. So I don't think Pat Riley can just continue to let this happen, because Jimmy's not going to change. He doesn't want to be there. He's not happy. And I don't think Pat Riley can continue to play this game with him about who gets to say what. Like, because you're the player and I'm the president of the team, I'm going to have the final say. And it's like, you're suspending him twice. No, it has to end. Like, it really truly has to end.
It does, and I'm sure the Players Association is just waiting to get involved in this. So we'll see, and we'll be here to cover it all if anything does go down. Any last thoughts, Swiper, before we get out of here?
Nah, man. Shout out. The NBA is in full swing. It's in full swing right now. There's a lot of stuff happening.
That's for sure, man. And the ratings are up. Everything's up. It's going to be an exciting time. Make sure you guys are following us at Locked On NBA, man. You stay subscribed to this channel. By subscribing to this channel, you can get not only this show, Game Night, you also get the midday Locked On NBA show, which also I'm a part of as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned in with us for that. Go and check out Swiper over on Locked On Nuggets. And we'll see you guys next Friday, y'all. Peace.